So you go, well, it's too expensive, I'm just gonna go rent one. Well, actually, you may not actually know this, but you are actually losing more money renting an exotic car than actually hacking one. So, a big question I get on a daily basis is basically, should I go rent an exotic car, or should I rent my car out to other people in order to offset the payments? And there's a couple of big issues here. The first one is, let's talk about renting exotic cars in this particular video first. Like, you want to go and actually drive an exotic, and so you go, well, it's too expensive, I'm just gonna go rent one. Well, actually, you may not actually know this, but you are actually losing more money renting an exotic car than actually hacking one. So let me give you a perfect example. The average Lamborghini Huracan owner, as a hack, spends roughly, ownership cost is $600 a month to own a Lamborghini Huracan. That's not your car payment, that's your ownership cost, your true loss per month on average for a Huracan, right? However, that's a month. However, to rent one, it would be roughly almost $1,200 a day. So the question really becomes, do you want to drive a car for a day, or do you want to drive a car for the month for the same price, right? And so basically, that's why hacking is such a stronger concept than renting. Now, for those of you that still insist, listen, I gotta go rent, there are some things you should be very careful of, because rental agencies in the United States are completely screwed up. And I know this from a lot of experience, having worked with a lot of them, that in the past, I've had clients that visited countries, cities, etc., and so I've put them into different rentals, and I can tell you there is probably 1% of the population out there that is actually 1% of the rental population out there that's actually doing a real normal business going forward. So what are some of those things? The first thing you need to be careful of is your deposit. Most people don't know, but most exotic rental places require a deposit. There are a few ways to actually spot if they're scam artists or not. The first one is, do they accept Amex? You see, Amex is really good at making sure you get your deposit back for cars like that. Because one of the basic things that exotic car rental companies do is they go out and specifically make sure that by the time you bring the car back, they come up with a reason why they can't refund your deposit. And that's a big deal, because that means you could actually be losing $3,000 to $4,000 in your deposit just because they're trying to scam you out of it. Having an Amex to put down your deposit often protects you against that. And so most of the companies that are scamming people won't accept Amex for deposits. And that should be your number one kind of red flag. The second thing you should really look out for is that a lot of these exotic places actually don't have insurance to insure the exotic cars you are actually renting. And while you sit there and you go, well, it says insurance, they've even upsold me better insurance so I'm covered, most of these places, A, can't even afford to pay for these cars, B, in a lot of cases, actually don't have insurance. The way to get away from it, just so you understand how it works, basically there's no insurance company now in the US that insures basically exotic car rental companies unless they were grandfathered in from a couple of years ago. So the way people get around this is you have an actual exotic car rental company that is tied to some kind of dealership. And the dealership then fronts the insurance, not under car rental, but under the test drive insurance that they have. So in other words, if something occurs, they play it off that way, that a customer test drove the car, it was damaged, and so on and so forth. But the company itself doesn't have any actual insurance resources. Now, how do they scam you in this process? Well, why would you care? You don't care who pays for it, right? Except that what they'll do is they'll ask for your insurance card and ensure that you have enough insurance to insure the car if something happens. Usually what they'll do is they'll do anything in their power to go after your insurance if something happens first to try to get all the money, and only tap into the dealership insurance if and only if they're completely screwed. One of the things people don't realize in this business is that if they tap into your insurance company, then you will have a claim on your insurance that will impact your premiums on your regular car. And you need to be careful of that, because it is very, very dangerous for you to physically do that. So that is another place where they completely screw you. So if you're looking at, actually renting an exotic car, you should pretty much consider the fact that you, under all circumstances, must be extremely careful to not only know who you're renting from, but actually checking other resources or other people who have rented from there in the reviews. And if there's any indication that there's somewhere on there where it states that, other people have had experiences where they never refund a deposit or anything else, you need to be extremely careful, because these are red flags. And also remember that most of these places don't actually own their cars. A lot of times they're tied to a dealership that will provide them inventory to rent that has been cars that they couldn't sell. Or they're buying salvaged and damaged cars that just ultimately have a ton of issues and wouldn't have been able to sell anyways. They're buying them cheap enough so if they get in an accident, they can quickly fix them and they're not worried about it. And so that not only hinders your exotic car experience significantly because you're not actually driving a premium version of the vehicle you thought you were renting, but in addition to that, it puts a lot of liability on the person renting, and in many cases, they can get scammed out of it, which could be very dangerous for you or anyone else who's actually putting money on the deal. So no longer should you seek to rent a car, and instead you should start looking at hacking a car. If you want to learn how to do that, click the link below this video in the description, and that will physically take you to a free training I put together just for you guys here on YouTube that can literally help you become better at this game of hacking so you never have to rent a car again.